Y'all, this wasn't just a missed call. This was a moment that allegedly shattered everything. Because while the world was standing on its feet screaming for Michael B. Jordan as he held that Oscar, somewhere behind closed doors, a phone was ringing, and a woman who once had him completely was being sent straight to voicemail. No answer, and oh response, and oh second chance. And what happened next? That's where it gets disturbing. Sources are now claiming that Lori Harvey didn't just take that silence lightly, she broke down. Completely. Crying, shaking, unable to hold it together. While Marjorie Harvey allegedly tried to calm her down as the reality hit, the man she once walked away from is now untouchable. But here's where the story turns explosive. Because this isn't just internet gossip anymore. Insiders are pointing fingers at Brandi Harvey, claiming she's the one exposing what really went down that night. And if that's true, then this isn't just heartbreak. This is family betrayal. And it gets even darker. Because the same man who was once painted as the villain accused, dragged, and quietly disrespected, stayed silent, worked in the shadows, and came back with power no one can ignore. So now the question isn't what happened. The real question is, did she walk away from a man, or did she lose a legacy she can never get back?
I'd be real careful, because Lori, boy, she be in my... I can't make no mistakes. I can't make sense. I saw one of her exes somewhere at a game somewhere, and I shook his hand. Boy, I can't even touch his no more. I better not acknowledge him or look at him or nothing no more. So I'm off limits. If you are ex, your ex is my ex too. That's the rule. The rule in our house is any boy that's an ex, he's now my ex.
The moment looked perfect on the surface. Flashing lights, standing ovation, a name echoing across the room, Michael B. Jordan, finally cementing his place at the top. The cameras captured everything. The smile, the disbelief, the victory. But what the cameras didn't capture was the silence on the other end of a phone. Because while the world watched a man rise somewhere else, a different story was quietly unfolding. Allegedly, just hours after that historic win, Lori Harvey made a decision. A simple one. She picked up her phone, scrolled to a name she once knew better than anyone, and pressed call. Maybe it was closure, maybe it was pride, or maybe it was regret finally catching up. The call rang, and then it stopped. Voicemail. No answer. No acknowledgement. No return. Just a cold, undeniable message. Access denied. And according to multiple whispers now circulating behind the scenes, that moment didn't just sting, it broke something. Sources claim Lori didn't hold it together. Not this time. Not behind cameras. Not behind curated images. They say she retreated, shut herself away, and what followed was something far from the composed persona the public is used to seeing.
Wasn't ready, because when a woman finds a good one, then that's what you're looking for. But I will say that she's young still, you know what I mean? And I too was looking forward to them making it, because I thought, oh, you know what? She's been looking for someone to keep on her arm, to be able to have a relationship with that is meaningful and is successful, because we know that the girl gonna keep her somebody that is gonna be newsworthy, you know. But well, I think,
damn, Lisa Ray.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, she ain't no joke. She ain't. And her mama, Marjorie, my girlfriend, she gonna make sure that she doing and navigating the right way, because she gonna make sure that she is. And I think every mother should do that, you know. But I think at the same time, she's young. I think the established relationship that Michael did have before this one, I think that maybe that social media, that all of that was a lot for him. And I think that he, you know, I heard about his ex, and him was so serious that he may have missed.
Crying. Uncontrollable, a complete emotional collapse. And right there with her, allegedly, was her mother, Marjorie Harvey, trying to piece together what couldn't be undone. Because the truth, if these reports are accurate, is brutally simple. The man she once walked away from has now reached a level she can't reach back into. But this story doesn't start here. To understand why that missed call matters, you have to go back to when everything still looked like it was meant to last. When Michael and Lori weren't headlines, they were a statement. This wasn't casual. It wasn't temporary. By every visible measure, this was intentional. He wasn't hiding her. He wasn't playing games. He brought her into his world, introduced her to his family, aligned her with a future that, to outsiders, looked inevitable. Even Steve Harvey, known for being protective, selective, and publicly vocal, gave what many saw as rare approval. That alone signaled something serious. There were holidays spent together, public appearances that felt calculated but genuine, interviews where Michael didn't say everything but said enough. Hints, direction, commitment. And then, without warning, it ended. No gradual fade. No public unraveling. Just a clean break. Lori's explanation, at least on the surface, sounded simple. She wanted to focus on herself. She wanted freedom. She wanted to enjoy being single. And just like that, it was over. But what followed wasn't quiet. Because almost immediately, the narrative began to shift, and not in Michael's favor. Suddenly, there were whispers, allegations, questions about loyalty, about who did what, about what really happened behind the scenes. And one name kept surfacing in those conversations, Lisa Ray McCoy. She didn't just comment, she suggested something deeper, something messier, claims that hinted at betrayal, claims that, if true, would completely flip the story. And the most telling part? No one shut it down. No direct denial, and correction, and pushback strong enough to stop it, which allowed the narrative to grow unchecked. And while all of that noise was building, Michael said nothing. No interviews addressing IT, and public defense, and attempt to rewrite the story. He disappeared into his work, quietly, strategically. And now, standing on the other side of that silence, holding an Oscar, commanding a level of respect that can't be questioned, the narrative has changed again. Only this time, it's not being controlled. Because if these latest claims are true, then the silence that once protected him is now the same silence that's haunting her.
Yes, I'm on vacation right now, okay? I'm traveling around. And newsflash, okay? All right? Yeah. There's not a lot of black women in Italy, okay? It's not. It's just not. I'm sorry. It's not, okay? Y'all plug it. I read through the comments and shit. Y'all tearing your boy up. It's too much, man.
What makes this story unsettling isn't just the breakup. It's what happened after. Because while Michael B. Jordan disappeared into silence, something else was happening in the background. Something quieter, but far more calculated. The narrative was being rewritten. And according to multiple reports, it didn't take long before the blame started shifting in one direction. Michael. Allegedly, whispers began circulating that he wasn't who people thought he was. That behind the polished image, there were secrets. That loyalty might not have been as solid as it seemed. And then came the spark that set everything off. Lisa Ray McCoy. Her name didn't just appear in the conversation, it drove it. She claimed there was more to the breakup. That Lori hadn't simply walked away for independence, but because of something she discovered. Something involving Michael and his past. A possible betrayal. A hidden connection. A version of events that painted him not as the man who was left, but the reason things fell apart. And once that idea hit the public, it spread fast.
Daddy, stop. That was all she said was, don't play. Because Lori really thinks she's the special one. She really does. Lori, I told her I was going to cut her off because she's making a lot of money right now. And I was going to cut her off, and she just started laughing. And then she said, well, and you're not going to speak to me anymore?
Because it didn't come from a random source. It came from someone close to the family. Someone people believed had access. Someone who wouldn't just speak unless there was something to say. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because despite how explosive those claims were, no one directly shut them down. Not Lori Harvey, not Marjorie Harvey. Silence. Again. And in the world of public perception, silence doesn't stay neutral. It leans. It suggests. It allows people to fill in the blanks. So the story evolved. Michael wasn't just the ex anymore. He became the alleged problem. The man who lost a good woman. The one who couldn't keep it together. The one who, according to growing online chatter, had patterns. Patterns that fed into another narrative, one that had followed him for years. That he only preferred a certain type of woman. That his image didn't match his reality. That what people saw wasn't what they were getting.
Right after that, I went through my very first public breakup. Now, most people after a breakup are like, I'm gonna get in better shape. But I was already in Creed shape. So I had to be like, all right, I guess I'll learn a new language. Anyway, estoy en raya. After the breakup, everyone thought I was so heartbroken because when the news came out, I was at a basketball game and they caught me looking like this. Performing a song off of one of the most relatable albums of all time, Her Loss.
I will say this, I heard about his ex and him was so serious that he may have missed.
And while all of this was building, intensifying, taking over headlines and comment sections, Michael remained exactly where he had been from the start. Silent. No reaction, and correction, and defense. And that silence? It became louder than anything being said about him. Because instead of fighting the narrative, he let it exist. While he focused on something else entirely. Work. Preparation. Transformation. Because behind the scenes, while his name was being questioned, he was building something that would eventually make all of it irrelevant. And when that moment finally came, it didn't just shift the conversation. It erased it. The same man who had been dragged through rumors was now standing at the highest level of recognition in his field. Validated, celebrated, untouchable. And suddenly, the old narrative didn't hold the same weight anymore. But here's where things take another turn. Because as his image was being restored, questions started circling in the opposite direction. About Lori, about the decision, about whether walking away was really about independence or something else entirely. And this is where the situation starts to feel less like a breakup and more like a miscalculation. Because timing matters. And according to insiders, Lori's timing may have cost her more than she expected. Not just a relationship, but a future that was already taking shape. And now, as reports continue to surface, as names like Brandi Harvey begin to get pulled into the conversation, the story is no longer just about what happened between two people. It's about what happens when perception, power, and silence collide. Because in the end, the narrative didn't just change. It flipped. And the person who once controlled it might now be the one trying to escape it.
Man, y'all. I stand here because of the people that came before me. Sidney Poitier, Denzel Washington, Halle Berry, Jamie Foxx, Forrest Whitaker, Will Smith, and to be amongst those giants, amongst those greats, amongst my ancestors, amongst my guys. Thank you, everybody in this room and everybody at home for supporting me over my career.
By the time the narrative flipped, it was already too late to control it. Because what started as whispers had now turned into something louder, sharper, and far more personal. This was no longer just about Michael B., Jordan, and Lori Harvey. This had become a family story. And at the center of it was a name people weren't expecting to hear. Brandi Harvey. Because according to multiple circulating reports, the information about Lori's alleged emotional breakdown didn't come from outsiders, they came from inside the house. And that changes everything. Because when narratives are exposed from within, they hit differently. They feel less like gossip and more like truth people were never supposed to hear. Allegedly, Brandi didn't just hint at Lori being affected, she revealed how deep it actually went. That this wasn't just regret in passing. This wasn't a quiet what if. This was emotional collapse. A realization hitting all at once, that the man she once had complete access to is now completely out of reach. And if that's true, then the voicemail wasn't just a missed call. It was a line being drawn. Permanent. But the tension doesn't stop there. Because behind the scenes, there have always been whispers about the dynamics inside the Harvey family itself. About favoritism, about distance, about things not being as united as they appear in public. For years, people have speculated that Steve's older children, including Brandi, have had a complicated relationship with a newer family structure. That not everyone moved in sync. That not everyone shared the same bond. And at the center of that tension, Lori, the one many believe has always been treated differently. The favorite. The spotlight. The one whose decisions carried less consequence. Until now. Because what happens when the person who's always been protected suddenly faces something that can't be fixed? What happens when influence, money, and image can't undo a decision? That's when reality sets in. And according to insiders, that reality is exactly what Lori is facing. Because while Michael B., Jordan continues to rise, continues to build, continues to solidify his place at the top, every step forward he takes casts a shadow backward. And somehow that shadow keeps landing on Lori. Every headline about his success brings her name back into the conversation. Not as a partner, not as a supporter, but as a reference point. The one who left. The one who walked away. The one who allegedly fumbled.
That she wasn't ready, because when a woman finds a good one, then that's what you're looking for. But I will say that she's young still, you know what I mean? And I too was looking forward to them making it, because I thought, oh, you know what? She's been looking for someone to keep on her arm, to be able to have a relationship with that is meaningful and then successful, because we know that the girl gonna keep her somebody that is gonna be newsworthy, you know. But well, I think
family, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, she ain't no joke. She ain't. And her mama, Marjorie, my girlfriend, she gonna make sure that she doing and navigating the right way, because she gonna make sure that she is. And I think every mother should do that, you know. But I think at the same time, she's young. I think the established relationship that Michael did have before this one, I think that maybe that social media, that all of that was a lot for him. And I think that he, you know, I heard about his ex. And him was so serious that...
And over time, that label sticks. It becomes part of the story, part of the legacy. And that's where things start to feel heavier. Because success doesn't just elevate one person, it exposes everyone connected to them. And now, the same silence that once protected Lori's image is working against her. Because people are asking questions about the breakup, about the rumors, about why certain narratives were allowed to grow. And more importantly, about whether the truth was ever fully told. Because if the cheating allegations were exaggerated or misunderstood or strategically allowed to spread, then that changes everything. It shifts accountability. It reframes the entire situation. And suddenly, the person who walked away from the relationship becomes the person who may have misread it completely. And then there's the timing. Because timing, in situations like this, is everything. Walking away from someone before they reach their peak can feel justified in the moment. But watching them reach that peak without you, that's something else entirely. And according to ongoing reports, that realization is hitting harder than expected. Because it's not just about love anymore. It's about position, about what could have been, about standing next to a moment instead of watching it from a distance. And if the claims about Lori's emotional state are true, then this isn't just regret. It's recognition. Recognition that some decisions don't come with a reset button. That some doors, once closed, don't open again. No matter who you are, no matter who your family is, no matter how much influence surrounds you. And that's what makes this story different. Because it's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's quiet, controlled. But underneath that control, there's pressure building. From headlines, from insiders, from within the family itself. And as more names get pulled into the narrative, as more details surface, one thing becomes harder to ignore. This was never just about a breakup. It was about perception, power, timing, and the cost of walking away from something before fully understanding what it was becoming. Because now, as Michael B. Jordan stands at the top, the question isn't whether Lori misses him. The question is, did she underestimate him? Or worse, did she realize too late exactly who she let go? And now everything comes down to this. Because no matter how you try to spin it, no matter how many narratives were pushed or protected, one detail refuses to fade. The moment Michael B. Jordan didn't pick up that call. Not when it mattered. Not when the past came knocking. Not when closure was possibly just one conversation away. And that silence? It speaks louder than anything anyone has said since. Because while he moved forward, elevating, winning, becoming untouchable, Lori Harvey is now allegedly stuck in a moment she can't undo. A decision replaying over and over again, with no way to rewrite the ending. And if insiders are right, if Brandi Harvey really exposed what's been happening behind closed doors, then this isn't just regret. This is realization hitting all at once. Because the truth is, opportunities don't always come back. People don't always wait. And sometimes, the person you thought you could circle back to becomes the one you can never reach again. So now the world is watching this unfold in real time, not as a love story, but as a warning. About timing, about choices, about what happens when you walk away from something real, thinking there's always more time. But what do you think? Was this all just overblown drama, or did she really lose something she'll never get back? Drop your thoughts below, because this story isn't dying down anytime soon, and the next detail that leaks might change everything.